driving a nice BMW or Mercedes every couple of years does not, well, in a city where you get vandalized a lot, doesn't it doesn't appeal to me. But knowing that I have the freedom to be present for my family, my children, that's a massive level of success for me. And I think that a lot of parents would also be able to understand that as a motivation.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mindset Podcast, hosted by Eric Nelson and brought to you by Wild Oak Capital. Eric is a real estate investor, business owner, and performance coach. Throughout this series, Eric explores the mindset behind why certain investors are so successful and how we can learn from their achievements and failures. Eric asks the tough questions around the habits, discipline, mindset, and more required to achieve the most ambitious goals. Thank you for being here and enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Real Estate Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Eric Nelson. Tonight, I have someone who we have a lot in common, so I'm excited to jump into this. Michelle Jeong, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Eric, and it's an honor and pleasure to be here and to be with your audience. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here too. So I always start out this way. Can you give us sort of your background? I mean, where did you come from? What have you been up to? And then what led you to real estate?
Sure. So I'm based in San Francisco. I'm born and raised in this native city by the Bay, but I've lived everywhere, and I'm a firstborn generation American. So I guess kind of following the footsteps of that American dream. My parents were immigrants, and I basically was from poor backgrounds, went to public schools, worked hard, did the daily grind like everyone else. And probably a lot of people in your audience can identify. I went to school, did all the right things in terms of the checklist. Found myself about 10 years ago, divorced with millions in debt due to a very expensive divorce and proceedings, and with two girls that I had to support. I was a sandwich generation millennial, so I also had the challenge of caring for my parents as well as the dutiful Asian daughter. And so I found myself in a pickle. I had to really think hard about how to reinvent myself. And this is where I discovered real estate.
I love it. I mean, there's so much in there, right? So I've had a couple first generation guests as well, and they share that similar kind of upbringing. And it's interesting to talk about that because, you know, there seems to be this kind of push from first generation parents, you know, to get a job and to do like kind of the standard American dream, like you said, and then for you to jump out into real estate can probably be a little scary given your background. And then the second thing is, you know, in my opinion, being a single mom has to be the hardest job in the world. So good on you. That's pretty incredible that you can do it. So yeah, I mean, I guess if you don't mind, let's back up a little bit more. Tell us about like your professional background, and then where are you now in real estate?
So my professional background, I've got degrees in econ as well as in business. I have worked in tech, various positions, both large companies and startups. If any of your listeners identify with Dilbert, you know, of the comic strip Dilbert, it felt very much like the cubicle life, you know, the W-2, etc. I've also worked in strategy consulting, working very, 60, 80 hours, flying from coast to coast, country to country for different projects. And it was fun, and I don't regret any of that, but it was also, there was definitely an imbalance in terms of work and life. That was, as a mother, was very challenging to continue. So 2017, I left my tech job to take the plunge because of what I said earlier about trying to juggle that work-life balance so many of us struggle with. Especially if you were, like any parent does, not just single parents, but any parents does, in terms of, trying to juggle their kids, and they're now your first priority, to also your parents, and having to, as they get older and they become more and more reliant on basic needs. That was something that, well, reality bites sometimes, right?
Yes,
So,
it does. Okay, cool. And I guess let's go on to where you are now. So we'll talk about difference capital. So I guess I'll let you start, talk about it a little bit, and then I have something I want to do that I've never done before. But if you could tell us a bit about it, how to get started, and then, what does that mean, the difference capital?
So again, I mentioned my immigrant background and the whole idea of, my parents were daycare providers. They were auto mechanics, et cetera. They were very much, the salt of the earth, blue collar. And it was really important for me to go back and serve, serve those that support our economy and to give back. And right now we are at a huge demand for affordable housing. I mean, a couple months ago, Wall Street Journal came out with an estimate that we need to, in order just to stay even, 6.6 million in housing alone for affordable housing, and we don't have that. I mean, every research paper that you can see, every media that you read talks about the lack of affordable housing. And if that's where the difference capital came about. I believe in what I call like the 3 Ps as a social impact real estate investor. That is purpose, serving workforce housing, the common American. It has to be people, because I believe that profits follow the people, as you and I both discussed earlier. So you can really align all those 3 together for what I call a win-win. And that's the whole drive for why I created the difference capital.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And that's why it stuck out to me so much. And so what I was going to do was read your about on
Yeah,
this Facebook page.
sure.
And it says, we are real estate professionals and investors with a heart. We believe that profit and people are not contradictions and can result in greater returns for all. So that to me just blew me away. I mean, I read that and I thought, wow, that's exactly what I believe. And it's very possible. And then it goes on, you go on to say, what makes you different? It says, you are minority owned, female led team that manages from start to finish, purchase, rehab, rental, sale of your listings. You'd say we believe in a triple bottom line return, investors, returns in our community. So when I read that, I was like, this is awesome stuff, because that's exactly how I feel. I really do believe it's people first. And if you provide a better place to live, we talked offline exactly about this, about safe, semi-affordable, if at all possible. I mean, there's not always a possible situation there, but it's really about the people. And then once you provide that, the profits will follow.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
I'm so glad to kind of read that. And it does seem that some investors don't feel that way. I think more and more that's the case, but I loved reading that on your page.
Yeah. I mean, please don't get me wrong. I'm not, the numbers have to work. So
Yeah, of course. I mean, it is a business after all. I mean,
this is
but
a
I
business,
think,
not
yeah,
charity. However, that being said, I have worked very, very closely with different governmental programs, whether that be the VA, whether that be the Bridge program in certain cities that bridge foster children who age out, Section 8, and other types of programs. Right now, I'm working closely with on a project in New Orleans, and we're working with a program called Unity, which is very much focused on getting individuals as well as families out from homelessness to housing. And all of these places have to pass code inspections, have to be are absolutely clean and beyond repaired, et cetera. So what they're getting is a fantastic product, whether they are private individuals or come with vouchers. It should not matter. And that's, I feel strongly about that. And yeah, I mean, again, this is, we work hand in hand with these government agencies, but at the end of the day, it still is a business.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think what I mean to say by that is like you said, I think if it's a clean place, you're going to have occupancy, and occupancy drives profits. And it just kind of can go hand in hand, in my opinion. I think it doesn't have to be the bottom line driven no matter what. It can be both. So that's kind of what I wanted to touch on. I love that stuff. And then we talked online a lot about mindset stuff, and I don't necessarily want to jump in just yet, but I'm excited to get there. Before we go there, can you tell us about your portfolio now? You know, what are you guys doing? Sounds like you have the deal in New Orleans, but what else do you guys have going or working on?
So I'm also looking at different other areas. So I invest nationwide, and there's another, for instance, project I'm looking at in terms of drug rehab programs or centers for drug rehabilitation. You know, again, we all know that this country is faced with a massive problem in terms of drug addiction. And so these are all areas that if I can provide the space to help start the healing process, I mean, it's just, it makes sense. I mean, it's a win-win. And so that's another project that I've been working on. Past projects also include, as I mentioned, foster children, working with vets, working with other homeless in Ohio, Mississippi, et cetera. So my team invests nationwide. I'm definitely interested in continuing. I'm definitely in the acquisition phase. And so if anyone in your audience would like to share some information or has some a property, et cetera, I'm definitely, if what I'm saying right now resonates, would love to hear from your listeners.
Awesome. Well, I guess I'll ask a hard question. Are you finding success? I mean, are you finding that you can provide these things and still be profitable? Because I think there would be some skeptics out there, right? So yeah, that sounds great, but how do we make money? So I'll just ask that hard question. Are you guys finding success in that?
Definitely. So I consider myself somewhat of a stickler in terms of numbers, and I am always looking for double-digit returns for my investors. So within, you know, I can't promise because everything is a deal-by-deal basis, as everyone knows. But I can give an example where I just purchased. Bought out some partners, and they walked away with, you know, very above 20% returns year on year. Honestly, I don't know that many other investment vehicles outside of Bitcoin that might give you those types of returns. So
yeah, and even Bitcoin's a little bit scary. I don't know if I'd be, I feel less comfortable personally. Oh no, cool. So let's go ahead and dive into the mindset stuff. I mean, I think that's where you and I will talk a lot because, you know, again, in the pre-show, we seem to have a lot in common thinking there. So, you know, I ask a series of questions. Again, there's no right or wrong answer, but I like to dive in if at all possible. So the first question is, do you have a morning routine?
It's fairly dictated by my children, but in all honesty, the biggest thing is coffee. You definitely want to talk to me after coffee. I don't have one of those guru type morning routines where I meditate or I get up and put in write my morning gratitudes. That said, however, is when I'm able to what I call create slivers of time, I definitely do write and I do write down my gratitudes. So.
Yeah, no, I love it. Again, I think I told you, I love these questions because there's so much difference, right? So some people, again, like super miracle morning every day, this is what they're doing, 5:20 a.m., and for some people that doesn't work. For some people that's painful and just, forced. And so to hear you say you create slivers of time to kind of get in there, and what you said was right, gratitude. So, I think anyone who's in this mindset world and knows a lot about it knows that that's, very, very powerful tool. But if the listeners out there has never tried it, this is a great tip, is every day write down something or several things you're grateful for, and it can create an enormous impact. I would also add to that, like maybe your goals. So I love to write down my goals and my gratitudes, but yeah, that's a great tip. So don't feel beat up. Anyone with kids can kind of, I think, resonate with that too. Sometimes the morning is a challenge.
Yeah, I'm the one hitting the snooze button at 5:20 in the morning.
Yeah, I don't even like the snooze button. I'm going to maximize it, right? It's up to the very end. So cool. The next question is, what books are you reading, or what books can you recommend?
So actually, I've been reading a book on mindset, a couple books on mindset. I know that Jason Dries has a Mindset Academy, and I definitely have listened to a lot of his podcasts, YouTube. Anyone can go onto YouTube and type in or search Jason Dries, Drees, and he has some good stuff there. I'll have to share with you the actual books on the mindset, but the one book I would say that kind of started everything in terms of real estate was the Kiyosaki book. So, I spent so many of us has spent so much money on, on with our student loans on university degrees, et cetera. I mean, I got an MBA. I went and got a couple of other graduate degrees. Love them, really helped. However, what really changed my mind and made me start thinking of how do I get out of the rat race was the Kiyosaki book. And because so many of us are taught to follow that path, and that path works for very few of us. And if you really want to rethink and you talked about goals, for instance. I had an amazing mentor way back decades ago, and he said that he asked people 4 questions, and I would love to share that with your audience, because that was something that really got me thinking about what success means to me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're jumping ahead of my questions, but I love it. So absolutely. Yeah, if you can share all 4, let's go for it. Do you remember them like by memory?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do. I kept it. I remember excusing myself from that dinner and writing it down in a flurry, because it was just, it resonated so deeply with me. And I would just love to share this with your listeners. The first is where I am. Where am I? Where am I?
I'm gonna write these down myself. So, all right, where am I?
So where am I? And just be really honest with yourself. It could be like, and it doesn't have to be. It could be. You could break it down into personal, professionally, family, relationship-wise, all of that. And this question applies to all of those categories and even more. So where am I? The second is, where do I want to be? And again, follow those categories of whatever you choose. How do I get there? And so many people and so many coaches talk about those 3 questions, but the 4th one is the tricky part. That's the twist. And this is where the 4th one is, where am I? Will it get me there? So you can start with, for instance, the Dilbert situation, where you're getting the W-2, you're getting a good solid job with the insurance, et cetera. And so many people stay in that position for life. And that's considered, the great white collar, socially acceptable situation. But if your goal is to be I don't know, a professional athlete, or if you want to be a multimillionaire with rubbing shoulders with Elon Musk, for instance, in a spaceship, that W-2 is not going to get you there, right? So you have to really start rethinking. And it's that fourth question that kind of really pushes you to start acting. And that's kind of the mindset shift.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff in there. And I think a couple of things we'll go into here. One is starting with the end in mind. So I love those four questions, is where do I want to be? And it may sound trivial, but it's the next part for me is the next question is how do I get there? And that to me, early on in this journey, I was just the same thing. I mean, it was like I had a job, I was kind of cruising along. And for some reason, I felt this pull to do something different. And so I use my life only to say that it actually is kind of novel for most people, I think, to think about this. 10 years from now, where do you want to be? And then the most important thing is how do you get there? And then I'll take it one step further. 5 years from now, how do you get there to be where you want to be in 10 years? 2 years, 1 year, 6 months? What do you need to be doing next week to be where you need to be 6 months? So that path is so cool. And go ahead.
Yeah, no, we're feeding off of each other here. So one thing that a lot of people have a hard time envisioning the big picture, that big vision and how to get there. And so they oftentimes lose momentum or whatever. And so what I've focused on is the small wins or nudges or so every day, we talk about, you talked about morning routines there. This is not really a morning routine, but what I do is I have a small little book and I write down, everyone's different, but what helps me is write a to-do list. And I have like a to-do list of as a parent, as for work, et cetera, I kind of combine it. But we all know that a lot of that to-do list is redundant and it's boring. Like I have laundry and I have cleaning, things like that. I have, picking up kids, etc., which is important. Don't forget them. But at the same time, I would say that 60 to 70% of it will not get you to your end goal. So what I started doing is I created not just a to-do list, but a success list parallel to that. And I started thinking, okay, of all of my lists today, what is like that one thing I can do that will start getting me to my end goal? And we all can do one thing.
Yeah, this is like Gary Keller stuff. I mean, his book's called The One Thing. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of it, but that's like
yes.
his philosophy.
So I actually listened to him and the book. I read the book, and so yeah, that would be one book I would recommend to your listeners too.
Oh, I love it. I love it. No, it's absolutely true. I mean, that's kind of his theory as well. Exactly what you said. I mean, you articulated it well because it's like you're right. 90% of your daily activity is just going to be kind of going through the motions or things you need to do. Again, they're important. They're part of being who you are and what you need to do. But to the end goal, yeah. And I love the idea of celebrating little wins, nudges, whatever it might be. So good. And then I think for me, again, like the short term was always easier to foresee. It was like, even down to the month, like what do I need to accomplish this month? And then kind of how do I get to those goals that will lead me to the end goal? Because I think you're right. A lot of people will burn out, or they'll say, well, 10 years from now I want to be rich, or 10 years from now I want to have, I don't know, big house, whatever. But they won't actually think about the steps that have to happen between there and doing that. So
and sacrifices.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Excellent point. And sacrifices. Great point. Okay. So, man, we kind of dove into the book thing there pretty hard. I love it. So the next question would be, have you had a coach or a mentor? And I know you just mentioned a mentor, but have you had a coach or mentor? And if you had to pay for them, was it worth the money?
Yes, I've had both coach and mentors in the past. Not, I wish more consistently than I have. but I have definitely leaned on them quite heavily, and I would definitely recommend. I have paid for coaches for sure. In terms of getting into the multifamily space, which is the commercial multifamily, I had an amazing coach. Her name was Jeannie. I adore her, and she was. I mean, I don't know if I can say this to your audience, but she was a total badass.
Yeah, you can go for it.
She was a total badass. Take no prisoners. I just adore her, and she is with a company. I don't know if I can say this, but it's a company called RE Mentor. I paid for training, paid for the coaching. It was extremely valuable. It paid in multitudes. So, it feels like a lot of money. It is a big risk, but it was worth it for me, for sure, because it put fire in my belly. Jeannie held me accountable, and I will always be incredibly grateful for that training.
Yeah, I mean, first thing is you absolutely can say that. I mean, I think it's always good to give a shout out. I mean, if it worked for you, I like to promote other people on the show, of course. So don't feel like that's not possible to do that or good. Love to have tips and ways because everyone's different. And so if she could help you, the hope is that we can help someone else too. I mean, that's really the heart of the show, right? So then the second part of that was, you said it was a lot of money. And yes, some coaches are incredibly expensive, or some mentorships or some programs are super expensive. This is a recurring theme on the show. When I ask that question, of course, that comes up. But the 95% of the people or more, I don't know, I'm guessing, say it's worth it. And it's because, like you said, it's an investment in yourself. And someone's putting a fire in there, holding you accountable. Some people say, I don't need to be held accountable. Well, that's fine. You don't necessarily need that particular part of it. Maybe you need more knowledge. Maybe you need a group. Maybe you need a support system. I mean, there's just so much, I think, that comes along with those programs, mentorships. I tend to push them a little because I think they're so valuable.
Yeah, I am. Believe me, I'm not getting paid to say this.
Well, yeah, neither am I. It's the opposite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely not getting paid to say this. But it was definitely, as you said correctly, it's an investment in yourself. And are you worth it? That's the question all of your listeners need to ask themselves. Are they worth it? To get to their dream position, is this a worthwhile investment? And for me, I was using my credit cards. I was a single mom. I had debt up the wazoo, and still I saw this as a wise investment for not just myself but my family's future. And thanks to the program, it truly provided me not just the one-off coach, because that's one thing about most people don't think about coaching as this continual lifelong learning, but they've given me this network that I can leverage, I can reach out to, I can constantly learn as much as I can. So, it's an upfront investment that lasts a lifetime.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, I continue with my same coach now. I mean, I'm on, I think, the third round now, and they just get deeper. So I tend to agree with you completely. I'm fortunate to have him. I always shout out to Jens. So cool. The next question is, what's something that you have done that you would not repeat that we can learn from you?
Wow. So I think that professionally speaking, if you have to really dig deep in terms, partnering is always, so many of us feel like we have to go at it alone. There's so many lone wolves out there, and I'm definitely it came from that space, and I think that the one tip I would share in terms of learning from my mistake is not partnering with people earlier. And I would, however, caution that these partners have to share the same value as yourself and the
Yeah.
same ethics. Because integrity, values are so important for me, accountability. And so it's not just smarts or my big Rolodex that I can tap into, but do I really share the same values as this person? So when, bleep hits the fan, are they going to have my back? And these are questions you have to ask yourself. So those are, that would be one mistake that I would caution your listeners, and don't do as I've done.
It's funny. I mean, I can absolutely, I kind of had this similar path, right? So I was against partnering for a long time for some reason. Looking back now, it was just foolish. I mean, that's the best way to say it. I thought that I needed control. I thought I could somehow do it better. I don't know what it was. And I completely agree with you. I would have partnered sooner. And I think the right partners are super, super valuable. And the second piece you said was choose your partners wisely, because they're going to be with you for a very long time. So I would treat it like a very severe interview, spend some time with them, try some stuff out, do even like work together without technically partnering. That would be my advice as well. So I love those two tips. So I really appreciate you sharing those for sure.
Yeah, no, it's like a marriage. You're going into this relationship for at minimum, 3 to 7 years. So you better darn know these people and trust them.
Yep, that's what Whitney Sewell calls it too. He calls it a marriage. It's the perfect example because it's a long-term commitment for sure. I'm gonna, it's not quite like a marriage, but no, I love the analogy, of course. So the next one is, what mindset tip can you offer for our listeners? If there's, we've had a lot of, right, but anything that stands out to you?
The whole idea of being your authentic self. We talk about mindset, but it's also truly being, listening to your gut, listening to yourself, as opposed to what's your social norms, or what the noise, I call it, tell you to do, versus what truly motivates you, what truly inspires you, what, again, you define as success. So my definition of success is so different than probably yours. I still drive an old car. It doesn't matter for me. Driving a nice BMW or Mercedes every couple of years does not, well, in a city where you get vandalized a lot, doesn't it doesn't appeal to me. But knowing that I have the freedom to be present for my family, my children, that's a massive level of success for me. And I think that a lot of parents would also be able to understand that as a motivation.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because that is my true motivation, is time with my family. I usually say travel are kind of those two, like extra time, which travel comes with time, right? So usually I'm motivated, generally speaking, by time. So I can absolutely relate. And then the one thing that you said, I don't know if I've heard on the show at all, was be your authentic self. And that is an outstanding tip. It doesn't matter what society's telling you to do, like you called it, the noise. You have to find your way, and so I hope that anyone out there, I hope someone hears this, is like, oh, that's so good, because it's so true. You do you be you. You don't have to follow the path, right? You don't have to follow even what other people are doing in the industry you're in. You have to find your way to do it. So I love that tip.
Yeah, no, it takes a while for a lot of us to kind of shake, to not listen to the noise, but it's helped guide me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll confess. Of course, I think I still listen to plenty of the noise, so it's not like I'm above it, right? I just like the tip, and so it's good to improve yourself and think about that. So I really love it.
Well, I'm going to shout out. I'm going to give a shout out to Brene Brown. So many of us have heard of her, and I love her as well. I've read all of her books, and definitely recommend all of her books, to know that we're perfectly imperfect, but we're all worthy. And to just to be, just as you said, you do you.
Oh, it's so good. That's amongst the best tips I've ever heard on the show. So well done. And actually, you kind of touched on the final question. So it's a two-part question. Let's dive into what is your definition of success?
Well, I mentioned that freedom, the flexibility, time. So creating the time to be present. For my mom just passed away in December, and to be present to help care for her in her last remaining year is a gift. And the story, backstory is that this time last year, I was under contract for a decent sized deal, close to 80 unit deal in Ohio. At the same time, my mom made the difficult decision of entering hospice, and I had to walk away. I had to lose a significant amount of money, but the bottom line is that you only have one mom, right? I have in the future, I can create more deals. I have the power and capacity to go back and dive into real estate, which I have done, but I only have one mom. So it's creating that time so I can be with those that I love and I care for, and be present. My children are in their teens. I don't have them for much longer. So that ability, success is time for with them. And you mentioned travel. I love traveling. I can't wait to put on my backpack and just kind of hike Machu Picchu again, or go diving with the sharks again. There's sacrifices. I have to be present for my family right now, so I can't do all those awesome adventures, but I would like to do that. And real estate has given me that ability to do that, when I can start shifting gear and becoming a little more selfish.
Yeah, you've earned it, right? So, well, first of all, sorry for your loss. I mean, that's an amazing story that you were there for your mom. And the other thing is, we kind of touched on this in the pre-show also, is the scarcity mindset. So, if someone thought this is the only deal, I have to do it, it might have not been present for their mom. I love your style to say, there's another one coming. I have to walk away and do what's right for me, for my mom. So very, very cool story, for you to take the time to be present, right? And then for your kids too. I mean, I feel the same way. There's always another deal. There's always another way to make something else. And I love that mindset of abundance, because if you're looking for it and you're going for it, they'll be out there. So anyway, good on you for being there. I love the attitude. It's also partly just because I tend to agree. So it's easy for me to get excited about it. But I do believe that time is super valuable. I totally agree.
Yeah. I mean, as the wrinkles start appearing and we get older, you just realize that, what do I want to do with the rest of the time that I have?
No
And,
doubt.
And that's the question we all have to confront, whether we like it or not.
Absolutely. Well, and then the final, this is part two of that question is, if someone asks you, why are you successful and others are not so much, whatever that definition is, what's your response?
Well, I was going to my first inclination was saying my bad sense of humor, but no, in all seriousness, I'd say that the last 10 years have really taught me to think long and hard and deeply about who I want in my tribe. You can't always choose your family. You're born into that, and you're given that, but you can choose your tribe. and to be surrounded with those that inspire you, that support you, that have your back, that you trust. That is so priceless. I am so grateful for the tribe that I've created. If they don't support you, if they aren't aligned with your values, they can potentially become toxic. And you don't need that in your life. Again, going back to what do I want to accomplish? It's not just what do I do, but the people that I surround myself with, will they help support me and get me there? And that is, I would say that my tribe has definitely been a huge factor in my success.
Awesome. I love it. I tend to agree that typically like the people around me are really as important, way more important, I'll say, for my success. So again, I think that we started the show by saying we have a lot in common. I tend to agree with you on a lot of things you say. So very cool. Michelle, this has been such a good show. I really appreciate you being here. I absolutely enjoyed the chat. I mean, this is one of those times where it's not really, I kind of lose track that we've been recording because it's fun to talk. So thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yes. And thank you to all of your listeners for participating. If you have any questions, if they have any questions about, I coach for RE Mentor as well, or I mentor. So if they need any help in terms of how to get into this business, I'm sure they can reach out to you. They can reach out to me. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, I always ask. So how can people reach you? And that's always the final question. How can people get in touch with you?
The best way is my email, thedifferencecapital@gmail.com. I always answer my messages. So if they have a quick question, if they're interested, if my overall mission resonates and they're interested in how to get into the multifamily space, for sure, reach out. It's thedifferencecapital@gmail.com. And my name's Michelle. So they could just reference this podcast and I will give a shout out to Eric.
I like it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here again. This has been an incredible show. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Real Estate Mindset Podcast. If you've enjoyed the content today, please follow this show wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to head over to wildoakcapital.com for more information or to connect with Eric directly. Please take a moment to leave a review or tell a friend about what you've listened to today. We hope you'll tune in again soon.